So, welcome back to our show, our Without Diminishment show that is, as of right now, nameless. So, if you have any name suggestions, we're all ears in the
Or
comments.
sponsorships.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sponsorships. If you have a cool company, want us to read an ad for you, we are all ears. But I am your host, Kate Marland, contributing editor, and I have with us today Alex Brown, Cole Hogan,
Hello.
and Geoffrey Russ joining us. So, I think that we could all agree that we have a lot of momentum right now with this project that we're working on, which is really exciting. And also, thanks so much to our subscribers like you, our, supporters who have been with us since this started up back in October. We just had this awesome event in Ottawa to kick off the week. And I've heard word on the street that it's the most fun that happened in Ottawa since the Freedom Convoy, but I won't confirm where I heard that rumor from. And I think the kind of key takeaway that I have from being in Ottawa for a couple of days, being at CPC convention, is that, for us and kind of writing in this sphere, we feel like we have made our thesis and our points 100 million times, and it's a bit like beating a dead horse. Um, and sometimes I think, like, I personally can feel a little bit bored with, saying the same thing over and over again. But I think, being out in the wild, it's the points we're making in our thesis at Without Diminishment really like bears repeating. And I think that the other real thing that emerged for me from this Ottawa event was like, we need to be, and I think this is how we've positioned ourselves, but such vigilant fighters against this kind of impulse to seek left wing approval. That is kind of like a rampant virus in conservative circles. So I see us as maybe like the vaccine to that virus. But I was wondering, I mean, Cole, you were with us on Monday. Do you have
Mhm.
anything to say, kind of reporting on that momentum from our fabulous party?
Yeah, for sure. So coming out of the conservative convention, we ran into a lot of folks who were excited about Without Diminishment and wanted to talk about the issues, that we are without a doubt leading the conversation on. And a lot of those same conversations, like I saw folks that traveled out to Calgary who were at our event on Monday and who are just happy that these conversations are happening in the first place. To Kate's point, there is like a tendency in conservative circles in Ottawa, particularly on the staffing level. And when you get together with folks like even MPs, you're not in a conservative space, you're in a liberal town and you're listening and consuming national media on a large scale. So when you hear, Laurentian consensus type views about what conservatives ought to do or not to do, it's very hard to avoid. And we've seen previous conservative leaders, fall victim to that. So going out of the coming out of the event on Monday, there was a lot of energy in the room just for us to exist in the first place. We got a lot of kudos for just being there and having a place to express these ideas because clearly, there's members of parliament, there's people on the Hill, there's just staff generally, people in the, opinion thought leader space that have seen conservatives try to lead solely on economic and pocketbook issues and that hasn't really gotten us anywhere. Like it got us to the Harper years, but like I said on Monday, the solutions the conservative movement had for the last 20 years cannot address the next 20 years or even the moment right now. So that's the conversation where we come in to actually talk about, cultural and social issues and where conservatives can actually lead on that. So it was great to see everyone out. I think there's definitely an appetite for more of these events because people want a space for these conversations. And it goes to show how much like everyone here has met the market need for these conversations because clearly they weren't happening before.
I guess this is one situation which will accept your use of a reference to the free market, Cole, but
Yeah, there we go.
that's okay.
Got to get
Uh,
one in.
Geoff, you weren't there on Monday, regrettably. We missed you. But what are your kind of thoughts on the momentum that we have right now with Without Diminishment? Kind of what do you see playing out over the next like even month, kind of editorially, and where we're going?
I think the results speak for themselves. If you go back to October, that's when we launched. And the fact that we are hosting almost spontaneous events in Ottawa, I mean, that's how it began. It was a spur of the moment idea. We were in the chats and we said, let's do something. There's people present in Ottawa. Cole's there. Kate and Margareta are there doing various tasks. And the fact that we could draw 50, 60 people at the drop of a hat, including MPs, shadow cabinet ministers, staffers, activists, and people from the media, that says a lot. And when Cole says that we are meeting the market for or so I should say, we're matching the appetite for these kinds of conversations. As I said, the results speak for themselves, and the content we put out, we very consciously try to differentiate ourselves.
During the weekend, though, or on Monday, they did more than one person brought up Jeff's piece to me. Like that was the first thing they said, was talking about like the opioid crisis and your piece about the tie-ins with colonialism. Like that was, everyone wanted to have that conversation.
Precisely, this entire society we have here in Canada is derived from colonialism. There's no way around that.
Yeah.
Even the anti-colonial movements themselves, those are imported from Britain. You look at the Quiet Revolution in Quebec, that in a sense was an anti-colonial revolt that is still based in European ideas that were brought over across the Atlantic. So this whole idea that we have to have an anti-colonial discourse, it really is anti-civilizational, it's anti-Canadian. There was no Canada until the European settlers arrived, and that's just the world we live in today. And if you're a conservative, then you live in the world as it is, not as you want it to be. And as Canada has gone further away from what it was intended to be, the more miserable we've become. So I think this conversation is worth having. There's a historical basis for it, and there's a present day basis for it. So let's keep it up. The fact that we can have these spontaneous events speaks to the fact that people are eager to have something more than another debate on free market economics. Not that we oppose them, and we always have to make that clear. We're not some sort of big state dirigist economic bloc when we accept their ideas, but we are adding to it and in a big way, and that's very important.
Exactly. That's such a good point, Jeff. And I think like our event on Monday and even some of the conversations we had at the convention in Calgary, we were really able to I can kind of make that point with some of the people that maybe we've had, online disagreements with or had a little bit of tension with. Like we're not trying to kind of eat anyone's lunch here. And I think what Monday showed us is that there is a room, there is a place for us in this movement, in this discourse that isn't taking away from anyone else's
Kate, is that your
discussion.
way of saying that you mended the fences with your libertarian friends in Ottawa?
We'll say it's a work in progress, but I think we're making headway with that. Yeah. And Alex, kind of, do you want to weigh in on this like momentum that you're seeing? I mean,
Yeah.
you're, as the managing editor, you see all the numbers, like you're kind of more in tune with, how things are going.
I do. I'm even though I have a BA in poli-sci, I'm the numbers guy for us, and they're flying.
Chilling.
Yeah, it's truly chilling. This is a house of cards, but don't check your bank accounts. But yeah, it's the numbers are flying. The subscribers are through the roof. The traffic's through the roof. I've been really heartened to see the crowd out of Ottawa. I know Jeff and I had incredible FOMO over the last few days, and from everything we're hearing, meeting the market, meeting the moment, consistently a bestseller. And people crave authenticity and community. They want to be able to litigate the last few years. They want to feel like they are safe amongst friends, and that they can talk about some of the things that they weren't allowed to talk about in years past. It doesn't mean anyone's saying anything like super offensive, but it just means that there is space to not default to tax codes. Or axing of, or what boots go with what suits, or not at all. They want to talk about culture, immigration. They want to Red Ensign Max. They want to do a little bit of the ooga booga, and they just want to be proud, fun, plucky, independent-minded Canadians, the kind of Canadians who I know to be in Ottawa, even though they sometimes are seemingly in hiding. It's a town with a ton of normal people. You have to look past the army of occasionally soulless bureaucrats, or look past some of the pricks who work in the lobbying sphere or what have you. But there's really good people there. There's a wonderful community, and that we're 2 for 2 on selling out events in liberal Vancouver and liberal Ottawa tells you something about the state of the movement and the state of movement building, which is that the core reason why we made Without Diminishment in the first place, which was like, what do you do after a loss? Like, what do you like Stephen Harper had to lose to win. A man we all greatly admire. And it's, do you just go away and take your licks, or do you try to do different things? Do you try to become specialists in different realms? Do you try to assert yourself in the market of opinion and discourse? And like that terrific Margareta piece from Thursday, which is just about, there's not a lack of appetite out there in the public. There's just a lack of avenues to present, to to the public, for publications like ourselves, like for us to serve a role there, for us to be continuing now to serve a role in the community, because like I'll pump your guys' tires, I'm happy to. It's like you all had fans in Calgary, and then Kate and Cole, you had fans in Ottawa. Like that's different. That's strange, but it's wonderful because it's these are all like-minded people, and I think we're so thrilled to have that attention. And yeah, I really just felt like I was missing out, and so I'm a little
Yeah.
bit jealous, but I'm so happy for how this is growing and changing. And if you want to get involved further, if you're one of our dear subscribers, watching right now, you're welcome to chip in. You're welcome to sponsor something. You're welcome to get in touch, because this can be as big as we want it to be. And right now, I feel like we are kind of reaching this point where it could really take off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would, if I could just add on to what Alex said. I think that the reason why there's such an appetite for this stuff and these events is because people have been fed a diet of very normal takes. Everyone's playing
Yeah.
the like steady role of what they always will within their partisan ideology and landscape, and they never really branch outside of it because within their own worlds they need to stay within their own space to be palatable to themselves and what they believe to be palatable to the general public. The reality is, like, what the general public wants is not any sort of the diet that they've been serving them,
Yeah.
them being political parties to the general public. So now that there's an outlet like Without Diminishment with opinions that don't resemble what we're used to getting, particularly in Ottawa, everyone gloms onto it because they're like, oh, this is a place where we can actually have these conversations rationally and sanely without everyone lighting their hair on fire or pretending like we're radicals. Like this, there's a space for this stuff, and that's why it's gaining so much attention. Calgary was an example of this too. Like naturally, there's more people of our disposition in Calgary, the Conservative Convention, but there's an overall audience that wants fresh voices in Canada instead of just hearing from the 60 plus set again and again, because they control a lot of these outlets. Not to be too conspiratorial, but a lot of them do belong to progressive people, and they don't want to have these conversations. They want to stop a conversation before it starts, because the first thing they do when you are making a conservative argument is they don't address the substance of your argument. They address the fact that you're even having the argument in the first place. The question is always, should we even be able to talk about this? Should we even be able to criticize immigration? And that's where the conversation starts. So when you have an honest conversation about something like immigration, earnest, honest people glom onto it because they want to have that conversation and not be, reined in by some ephemeral, invisible Laurentian stronghold, right?
Yeah, and speaking of the earnest and honest, like Stephen Pallasini, and I apologize to Stephen if I'm not pronouncing that right. Him and Nino, and it could go over two on pronunciations here. Mekhalidis, they produced a study for Without Diminishment. They met through the Build Canada network. And we were happy to run it because it was just this expansive look at express entry and how the PR numbers aren't what they actually are, and how we're kicking out really good people who want to stay here and are high quality. Like I have friends who are immensely skilled and want to be great Canadians, and they're getting the boot when the illegal truckers aren't. And you're just going, this doesn't work. People aren't leaving. The numbers don't match up. And so Stephen took a report in Without Diminishment and was invited to committee and was speaking about it before heading over to your event on Monday. And so that, no, like we don't accept the continuation of the tone policing. We don't accept the default to but what about the backlash? It's like, we're going to have real conversations, because in a void, and if people are scared of this stuff, like the next big social contagion that sweeps this nation, maybe it's Elbows Up 2.0, 3.0, maybe it's something else. Like we can assure the viewers here, the readers of Without Diminishment, like we're not gonna just lay down in the street for that one. It's this has served our future generations so poorly, our present generation so poorly. And so if we actually give a darn about change and conservative change and like building something and moving the movement and moving the party, you have to be strong and proud, and that work is making its way into Parliament. That work's making its way into the House of Commons. Etienne's latest was referenced on Thursday, and so no, we're going to keep doing our thing, and no matter the bad faith or no matter the smears from establishment types, we don't give a darn.
Yeah,
and it's worth Oh, go ahead, Geoff.
Sorry, no, I just want to say that Etienne's piece being spoken about in the House of Commons by Pierre Paulus, the Quebec lieutenant for the Conservative Party, That's huge. And if you look at our
Yeah.
Francophone pieces, we do publish mainly English stuff, but every time we have run our French language
Just
series,
explode.
whether it's
Yeah.
Etienne or Kevin Paquette, they get radio hits. I mentioned the House of Commons. The Francophone version of that piece that Etienne wrote has a third more views than the one in English, and it's up there. Like the
And
numbers are insane.
there isn't another conservative publication speaking to Quebec and
At least from
bridging
the
the
English
gap.
side.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
bridging the gap back. It's like we're heck, like this is like an inside baseball thing for maybe some of our readers who don't go to the kinds of conventions or parties or insider stuff that sometimes we get invited to as pseudo outsiders. We're kind of having our finger on the pulse. It's like Quebec's our ally on a ton of stuff. It's like I can
Yeah.
appreciate that, there are these public fights about equalization and roles of business cartels and the influences of separatism, what have you. But no, it's like these are really kind, whip smart young conservatives who have something slightly different to protect, but they love this country too. And there's no reason that we can't get on the same page. And if the conservatives want to claw back um, points from a forever collapsing NDP or things like that, it's like they have to gain in Quebec, and I think we know that we're doing our part, at least for the movement, to try to speak across fully the country.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think it's also like we have this kind of envy of our Francophone neighbors because they've been able to carve out such a unique kind of identity and preservation of heritage that those of us in Anglo Canada,
Yeah.
we just really haven't had that same, defensive spirit or even pride of kind of heritage and identity. And I think that this is something we're going to kind of ramp up to next week, Geoff, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how we're going to celebrate our heritage. Depending how you see it, sad or exciting anniversary is coming next week of when the Red Ensign was replaced with our current flag. And maybe you want to talk a bit, Geoff, about how we're going to kind of mark that moment and reflect on this.
Certainly, it was a great milestone at the time. Great as in it was simply big. I'm not going to say it was positive because it didn't happen it happened without a referendum in 1965. The flag that two generations of war heroes had gone to battle with, the Red Ensign, that was all done away with essentially by an act of parliament. And to this day, it's still controversial. That's the reason Ontario changed its flag to resemble the old Red Ensign. Manitoba did the same thing. But it will be the 61st anniversary of the introduction of the new Canadian flag, which I don't hate whatsoever. That's the flag we brought to the Olympics. There's a lot of great moments with that one. However, in hindsight, it seemed to be the start of the snowball that started to roll and build, which was eventually the institutional destruction of Anglo-Canadian culture, Anglo-Canadian identity, to the point where it seems like a radical thing to even suggest that it exists. There's a piece we will be having from a contributor called In Search of Upper Canada, where she discusses how Toronto used to be the bastion of Anglo-Canada, truly the bastion, until maybe in the 1970s, when it finally trailed off and became this international airport lounge of fusion restaurants. You can be, it's like the CBC ad. It's not how Canadian you are, it's who you are in Canada. I mean, that's Toronto ideology writ large. No offense to my good friend Alex here from Toronto, but I'm sure you can attest to it in person.
Your good friend who left Toronto, so I can attest to it in person. Yeah.
Welcome to the coast.
Yeah.
So we are going to be running a series of articles on what it means to be Anglo-Canadian in 2026. What has it meant over the past few decades? Is there a future? Does Anglo-Canada want to be something? And we're going to use the 61st anniversary of the replacement of the Red Ensign to kick that off. And maybe there's still a few pockets of it that exist, but I think it is an important question for the rest of Canada to have. Do you want to be something, or do you want to be effectively nothing in this globalizing, homogenizing world? Because every major metropolis is the same now. You go to Sydney, Melbourne, Toronto, London, all they'll talk about is what's great about us is our diversity and our multiculturalism. Okay, what's the value in that? Like, and that's not me trying to trash people from diverse and multicultural backgrounds. What I'm asking is it better that all these cities have the same ideology and talking points, or is it better that they actually had provincial local identities? And Etienne's piece for us, talking about how
Yeah.
Quebec City was this bastion of a very unique Quebecois culture, like the citadel of the Quebecois, which now the mayor has embarked on a crusade to change. The outcome of which will simply be it'll become Francophone Toronto or Francophone Ottawa. Is that desirable? Is it right that local culture should disappear. I don't think it is. And I think it's a question that conservatives have to answer because liberals have always been all in on multiculturalism, or at least they have since the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and they've been very successful at it. So does the right want to present something different, or do they simply want to take a riff on liberal multiculturalism?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a kind of exciting series to talk about this stuff because for so many years, we've looked at our Quebec neighbors and said, "You're doing a great job with your heritage. That's so cool. You have Bonhomme and Carnival and all that good stuff." But for us, yeah, it's just like endless fusion restaurants and kind of pining for maybe like a little bit of a throwback. Maybe the Queen or the Queen will come to Canada or the King and Camilla. And that's kind of the peak of it. So I think it's going to be interesting to kind of explore this instead of just kind of like wringing our hands and just saying, "Oh, well, we've been defeated, so there's no kind of identity here to fight for."
Mhm.
Precisely. I don't want the crown to be the be and all end all of Anglo identity, which is what it's more or less been reduced to. Or
Hmm.
kitschy tourism, for example. The motto of Quebec is, I remember the motto of Anglo Canada is, you'd better forget. And I think that's wrong. And I think it's better that people without diminishment elsewhere will actually fight for something different.
Hey, we're seeing in the polls too that Canadians are increasingly patriotic. Some of that is obviously a little bit of social contagion. Some of that is maybe based on their news habits. Some of that is maybe, the elbows up crowd. But there is certainly fertile ground right now to proudly talk about the history of your country,
Yeah.
to do so to a wide audience for a wide audience, and to try to help and nudge statues to go back up, to be pulled up from the bottom of harbors in the case of poor Captain Cook in Victoria. And we'll take them how we can, whoever wants in
Yeah,
on
do we
red.
have any listeners who own a crane or some kind of
Yeah.
like
Oh, that'd be
extraction
Where
wonderful.
is the
machinery?
John A statue in Montreal? And then we can go
Yeah.
hoist it back up. Where
I
is
think we have to
that?
start on our own turf first. Let's start in Victoria.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it took Doug Ford 5 years to unbox Sir John A. Macdonald in Toronto. That was a
Yeah,
that
that was
was a
unfortunate.
real
What a huge win for conservatism, a true leader.
And
three-term majority.
cultural high
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
A
Yeah,
that was
true
a wonderful high
culture
point.
warrior, you might say.
Yeah.
if I may, I do think it's interesting too because Canadians don't want to be told that they suck anymore. Like we got 10 years of being told that we suck and you should be
Yeah.
ashamed, and now they actually want to engage with their history and actually talk about it and celebrate it. And this is something you saw exemplified in Pierre Poilievre's 2022 Conservative leadership race. He
Yeah.
would talk about Diefenbaker, he would talk about Laurier, he would talk about the history of Canada, and then these are things that I think people want to actually engage with instead of, a national subset and framing of you should be completely ashamed
Negative
of Canadian
balance.
history.
Yeah.
And I think this speaks to why, as well, like provincial identity is more prominent in Canada than national identity. You have a vivid idea in your mind of what an Albertan or a Quebecer is, and some of them may be broad stereotypes, but those identities are more defined than the national one. And I think there's a reason for that because national pride has been, the tool of the federal government at any given time to promote their own policies or something to be proud of or ashamed of at any given time, given what their legislative agenda is and what they're campaigning on. Even look at the free trade debate in the 80s. Like national pride was weaponized in that regard as well. So I think we'll continue to see this happen, but now I think at Without Diminishment and a lot of younger Canadians that I talk to actually want to embrace Canadian history instead of ignoring it and pretending it's not there.
Yeah, I will say too that like Canada is broken as terminology or framing. It's not that it isn't untrue in so many ways. It has really burned out large segments of its audience, and like I can appreciate the gap on that front that exists between, let's say, the liberals demographic and the young conservative graphic. Because like if you're just going negative all the time, seemingly to them, they're going to want no part of it. And so,
Yeah.
so much of what we're doing now is trying to be positive and upward oriented and not just complaining. Like you're trying to be motivational in a sense. to build something that is future forward and uplifting. I even think of like my work with the National Citizens Coalition, where it was like, what's going to be like the tentpole campaign to start 2026, and it was like all the thoughts were like Canada's broken, Canada still sucks for young people. Like, what the hell happened the last 10 years? But it's like, it's just fix Canada.
Yeah.
Fix Canada. It's not fire Carney, because that's not happening anytime soon. It's not X or Y. It's just, let's just fix it. We can do it together. I don't think anyone on this call cares who gets the credit right now, especially if, federal uh, prospects for success are potentially limited in the next few years. Provincially, it's all to play for. But it's just, let's just together build positive things. I even think of Build Canada. They're doing a very nice job at a kind of bipartisan, pseudo conservative leaning, but sort of liberal coded job, and like putting smart young people together to present these like really future forward prospects on housing, infrastructure, roads, etc. And so no, you got to get away from the explicitly negative, even if some of this renewal of patriotism might be temporary and might just be like anti-American fervor. It's like within that, it's like let's really try to keep these people, because like it's not. I don't love that their flag was mothballed for the last few years. I don't love that they hung every flag but our own. I don't love what they've done to this country by any means, but I will take them. I will take them back. I will work with them. I do, like Kate, I do love seeing all these people cheering on the Olympics right now. Like it's this country does so many things wrong, but it's like when you're rooting for even those terrible Lululemon jerseys, you're really proud of your guys and gals. And so like let's just get over some of our past beefs and indiscretions of a certain PM who shall not be named. And no matter who gets the credit, let's be positive.
I love that, Alex. I totally agree,
Thank you.
because I think everyone on this call and many of the people who contribute to us, like we all have had, various flashpoints over the last couple years on different issues. For me, I'm happy that we're here today celebrating the 4-year anniversary of me getting doxxed for donating $25 to the Freedom Convoy.
It's our gal.
Yeah, I was most famous in Ottawa for that up until recent days when I became a celebrity of Without Diminishment. But I think it's just so important to say, like, look, we may have had our differences, especially on the right, where we love to snipe at each other and point out where we are respectfully falling short. And I think
Yeah.
that's an important part of it. But like, let's kind of just, come together. I think the Olympics are a great example of, why it's important to come together in common cause. And conservatives love to bash on the Olympics. I loved what was Eric Lombardi on Twitter suggesting that Toronto should try and make a bid to host the Olympics and that would be a net positive. Like, yes, we should do that. If we're going to be printing money, which is basically the situation that we'll probably be in for the rest of our lives on this earth, we may as well print it for something that's cool and fun and will bring us together as a country and maybe like give us some good infrastructure.
I might get canceled by CPC members. I think CBC's coverage is great.
Yes,
As
I'm with you, Alex.
as we've written about before, like the Conservative Film Board and such. It's like no, it's cool. Like look, the script is dog shit. Like I can appreciate that, but I think it's wonderful. I think CBC Gem is a great app. I think like we're actually getting our tax dollars out of that. I love having multiple streams that I can watch. Like there isn't a world in which you can convince, I think, millions of people to vote for firing all those folks who are familiar to these people in their living rooms and
who are really good at their jobs, right?
yeah,
Like Craig McMorris, great commentator.
he's terrific. Yeah,
Yeah.
he I think they're great, and I think there is a role for, as you are sort of way ahead of the curve on, a kind of conservative embrace of the arts that isn't just bomb and gouge. It isn't just culling. It isn't just getting out the scythe and just. It is, these are the things that actually serve us. I can appreciate cuts here and there, but golly, it'd be great to be making good movies right now. It would be great to just be celebrating that, our public broadcaster, I think, is doing a pretty good job. And if someone's smashing unsubscribe right now, I'm sorry. I can appreciate that.
Alex, that is so controversial.
No, I got your back on the culture front. I think we waste money on much, much worse. I'm not saying we shouldn't, rein it back in. Rein it back in, for goodness sake. Like, do you need like 10 sitcoms that 30 people watch. Absolutely not. But like Olympic coverage is great. You know, the news can be pretty good sometimes, depending on who's the host. And so there's a lot to like there. The radio network is terrific, to their credit. Like a lot of people locally in smaller towns, you know, rely on these radio networks. So it's like, if that's a kind of connective tissue, I believe that's a kind of public good, even if we don't all agree about it. Like it's we waste hundreds of millions of dollars on like trivial nonsense, and I don't believe entirely our public broadcaster is one of them.
There you have it, folks. We are a pro CBC
A
publication.
red dot's going to show up here right now.
I would just like to interject.
Jeff, please.
Cut the camera.
I would happily rip up the CBC and start a new public broadcaster. I think an institution, I think it needs to be taken up by its roots and burned, but we can always create something better. Maybe with better people in charge, with better priorities. I would not call myself pro CBC, so don't unsubscribe.
Okay, it's all
we
right.
are
We can
divided on
have
this.
intellectual
We're
diversity,
united in
which is good.
disagreement.
Good. United in disagreement's good. See, folks, if you were going to unsubscribe because of me, now resubscribe because of Jeff. And
Yeah.
so,
There we go.
Defund
Cole,
the CBC and give their money
Cole,
to us.
you're particularly close to conservative circles. Maybe we don't ask you for comment on that.
Yeah, Cole,
Well,
it's okay.
The CBC could use a mandate refresh. How about we start with that?
There we go. Okay, maybe that's
Yeah.
just what I should have said in the first place. But
No, I think it's good for people in our sphere to point out that there actually are good things about it. Instead of just being like loser whiners who are like, oh, CBC Gem keeps crashing when I want to watch hockey. It's
Well,
like,
we
the
can-
way we fund our ballet, our arts, the Nutcracker, it's wonderful. Like it's sure it can be kind of a money pit, but there are lesser money pits, and so
we can get more for what we pay for. Like
Yes.
we can get some much more substantial quality programming, and I can acknowledge that there are good things that CBC does, while acknowledging that they are extremely tone deaf in terms of their coverage and regional based coverage. Like if they actually want to go back to, there's no reason why like a Nova Scotia election should only get 1 hour of coverage.
yeah.
There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to watch the leaders debate for every provincial election. There's no reason why there shouldn't be coverage of by-elections. Like this is the space that Sun News filled before because CBC wasn't giving you that. And as the state broadcaster, they absolutely should.
yeah, I think
enough.
in this, without going down a huge rabbit hole, because I know we're coming up against the clock here, I think the really critical thing going forward in this conversation is that we need, as right-wingers, conservatives, what have you, to divorce our sense of like what is valuable in a good cultural product from its monetary side. We are not going to make money. The CBC is not going to be a cash flow positive organization. The arts, the Nutcracker, the ballet, the opera, we need to get it through our heads that this is not how this is going to work. And I think once we have that kind of come to Jesus moment, then we can have productive discourse on this. And yeah, sure, there's probably ways we can rein in the spending of the CBC and reorient to that to what we think is good. But I think, as long as we're coming to terms with the fact that you can't monetize good art, like you can to a certain extent, but it's not, a kind of supply and demand issue that is like easily solved by economics. But sometimes you have to tell people what's good and put money behind it and then say, go with God. But that's my own personal little rant.
That's why I hired you.
No, it's true. The I think
Not money motivated.
No,
I think
none of us are.
I think it's worth saying that if you consider the arts to be, how should you call it, a product of the heart rather than the brain, then you're never going to have a rational process for that. It's inherently irrational, as are many things in life. Probably the things we hold the most dear to us are irrational. If we had a purely rational way of looking at things, we'd probably be robots or sociopaths.
We would have AI doing this podcast.
Our love of our country, in some ways, is in defiance of the rational. Like,
Absolutely.
I'm coming to you from a 600 square foot apartment. I can't afford a home. Kate's in a basement. It's it hasn't always done folks of a more recent vintage right, but it doesn't mean that I didn't wake up early to watch Team Canada this morning. Like it's not. You love this damn place and you want it to be better. And so it's okay to engage in the ephemeral, the some of that mushy schmaltzy stuff. Like that's our story. And like we love telling stories. And next week we're going to be Red Ensign maxing and telling some more great stories too.
Yeah. So everyone, on that note, everyone should rewatch Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer's gold medal
It's
winning
a beautiful skit.
performances.
Yeah.
We should lean into what's schmaltzy and kind of sentimental about this country. If God willing, we win a single gold medal in this Olympic Games, you better be standing up in front of your TV, tears streaming down your face, singing along loudly. Um, yeah, I think we have a lot to fight for here and a lot more fun discussions to be had. Does anyone
We
have
do.
any like final thoughts that they feel they want to get down there on the record?
Yeah, we got some exciting announcements to come as well. I'll just tease out. We have some positive developments, which is great. Events wise, appearance wise, like we're definitely trying to grow this out. And I will say, as per Thursday's releases from us, Margaretta's incredible column, which like to me is like the great essay in our sphere over the last couple weeks. Kate sent out a great message about our event. This is the time if you want to get on board, if you want to really help us make this something, we'd love to have your support, whether that's a subscription, a donation, drop us a line. We'd be happy to chat. We're trying to really build this out because all the other markers are there. You can fill up a room in Ottawa in 3 days, run out of drink tickets in 30 minutes. You can be a bridge to the folks who actually work at Center Block and who are in the House. Our work can appear there and in parliamentary committee. You guys can be popular in Calgary. We can sell out in Vancouver. But we're going to take things all over. And so people crave community. They crave authenticity. They want to be a part of something, and we are happy to be that something. And so if you share our alarm, if you share our vision, if you share our positivity about the future, your support is welcome.
Here, here.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Lots of exciting things to look forward to. Fun announcements hopefully coming very soon once everything is confirmed. But on that note, we will leave you. Hope you enjoy watching the Olympics this year or this weekend. Cheer for Team Canada. Don't doom. There's always something positive to look forward to.
Don't doom.
Keep fighting the good fight. Don't let them get to you. And thank you
Don't
for
let them
listening.
take it from you.
Don't let them take it from you.
Yeah.
They want to. But
Dear subscribers and supporters, thank you so much. It means a lot to us.
have a great weekend.
Cheerio.